And the city may think that you're just this brave guy, but I know the truth, okay? And it's freaking scary.
Remember in 2019 when the long-awaited final season of Game of Thrones came along and it slowly dawned on us just what was about to happen? We had a character who spent seasons 3 through 7 being hyped up as a liberator and just ruler, suddenly jumping off the slippery slope and incinerating a city full of innocent people. Another character went through a quality redemption arc to break away from his toxic family's influences and then was like, lol, no, I never cared about the innocent people I dishonored myself for. Other characters, praised for their intelligence, make a lot of implausible decisions or just do dumb things because it's the only way the plot can happen. Charmed fans already went through that.
Maybe it just wasn't meant to be.
Cole Turner, who was on the show from season 3 until the middle of season 5, is at once both the most fascinating and frustrating character Charmed ever came up with.
I just wanted you to see who I really am, Phoebe.
I've seen who you really are.
His introduction was a major turning point both in terms of on-screen storytelling and behind-the-scenes organisation, as well as shaking up the dynamic in a way that would stick for the remainder of the series. He brought Phoebe to places that were both interesting and infuriating, eventually taking Paige along with them, and left a sour taste in the mouths of many fans. But the nature of the sour taste depends on who you're talking to.
Leo, he's evil.
Really? And what are you?
While I don't believe in petitioning to have seasons remade just because the writing was that bad, if there was one thing I would ever change about Charmed, the resolution to this character is top of the list. And if we ever get that reunion movie everyone is clamoring for, and I somehow manage to talk my way onto the writing team, you bet cold damage control will be a thing. Cole was conceived by Brad Kern, who was both a writer and executive producer on the show for all 8 seasons. He tends to be a controversial figure among the fandom, but the biggest point of contention actually involves Cole.
I won't hurt you.
No?
Right before season 3, he was high on the idea of giving Phoebe an evil love interest who ends up turning good, but this brought him into conflict with series creator Constance M. Burge, who didn't want another long-running romance storyline after the love triangle debacle in season 2. This, coupled with her preference to have every episode be standalone when the others wanted long-running storylines, led to her stepping down and Brad Kern being put in charge. She would remain on board as executive consultant until season 5, which, coincidentally, is the least popular season among fans. And the high quality of seasons 3 and 4 leads me to believe that the dynamic seemed to work best when she was still around to offset any potential bad ideas that might go against the show's mythology. And ironically enough, since Brad Kern wrote the episode Centennial Charmed, in which Cole was killed off for real, that also leads me to believe that he didn't understand the character he pushed through. But let's get to that. Cole appears in the season 3 premiere as an agent of the Triad sent to infiltrate the sisters by pretending to fall in love with Phoebe. The Cole persona initially seems like a disguise of his true demon alter ego Balthazar, but we eventually find out that he's actually half human, and that he's only doing the assignment so the Triad will return the soul of his father, who was murdered by his demon mother. He spends 8 episodes trying to bring down the Charmed Ones through various methods, all the while using his romance with Phoebe to gather information. Then comes the episode Primrose Empath, in which Prue gets magical empath powers that allow her to feel the emotions of others.
Who's falling in love? Cole.
In the next episode, he comes up with a plan to successfully divide the sisters and disable the power of 3, and literally has an unsuspecting Phoebe at his mercy, and he can't bring himself to do it.
I can't.
He then kills all 3 Triad members to become an underworld outlaw, and is exposed to the sisters in the next episode.
I forgot what it was like to be human, to feel, to care. Then I met you.
The conflicted Phoebe takes the third option of pretending to vanquish him to save him from Prue and Piper, also parting with him forever. Of course, he returns several episodes later, in which he has to earn everyone else's trust and forgiveness, and become Phoebe's boyfriend for real.
You're not going anywhere.
Despite a brief bit of conflict where he goes too far undercover and gets framed for killing an innocent, they remain a stable couple throughout season 4, and Cole even becomes fully human and proposes.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the episode Charmed and Dangerous, he allows himself to be infected by the Hollow so he can steal the powers from the source of all evil and allow the sisters to vanquish him, being told that afterwards he'll return to normal.
you'll return to normal.
Of course, the normal in this case is by the Seer's standards, and Cole is possessed by the Source's essence. One bed trick later, and Phoebe's now pregnant with an heir that also convinces her to turn on her sisters and become queen of the underworld.
My life is with you and our baby.
She's able to be swayed back and vanquish the Source with the power of 3, but that also kills Cole and sends him to the demonic wasteland, where he'll be condemned to an eternity of something bad if he lets this icky snake monster consume him.
The beast feeds on their essence.
He can be revived with a spell from the grimoire, but Phoebe refuses to do so, and he ends up coming back to life by gathering the discarded powers of vanquished demons that makes him indestructible. He returns fully months later, with Phoebe and her sisters refusing to trust him and treating him like a pariah.
Does he want my baby?
After several failed attempts at proving he's turned good, he goes mad and evil in the hopes of making the sisters vanquish him.
I don't understand. That should have worked. Then why didn't it?
That doesn't work either, so he becomes an avatar that creates an alternate reality where the power of 3 was never reformed, and he and Phoebe are a miserable married couple.
The only reason I'm still here is to make sure that what happened to Prue does not happen to Piper, and you know it.
As in this new reality, he's just Balthazar again. They're able to vanquish him fully with a potion, and he never appears again except for archive footage and a guest appearance in Season 7.
You need to let go.
If I sounded a little apathetic while recapping the Season 5 stuff, it's because I was! So where to begin with this messy, metaphorical unpacking? We can trace the problems with how Cole's story ended right up to the source. Not this source, but rather Brad Kern. Cole was intended to only be on the show for about 7 episodes, according to him and actor Julian McMahon, and they liked the performance so much that he was kept around longer. But here's what Brad Kern had to say about how the arc ended. In my mind, that was the tragic love. As much as Cole wanted to conquer his evil side, we knew the fun would be in the conflict of seeing him try. Phoebe, the epitome of love, tried to overcome that evil, but it was baked into his DNA. Ultimately, she had to move on, and he had to die. So if Cole was always intended to be a temporary love interest who couldn't resist the dark side, then what the hell happened? They wrote a top-quality redemption arc. That's what happened.
But just think of all the good you've done since then.
This can often result when a writer plans out their story with a predetermined ending and doesn't account for how the characters evolve as you're writing them. It happens so often, where a character's arc is planned one way, but the writer's attitude softens towards them in the process. And in filmed media, when you have an actor performing the role, their performance and interpretation can be a huge game changer. Going back to Game of Thrones, there's the supporting character of Shae, Tyrion's kept woman in the Red Keep. Book Shae is literally just there because she's being paid, and it's a slightly twisted master-slave dynamic where Tyrion deludes himself into thinking she loves him, making her turning on him once he's on trial a logical enough progression. In the show, however, Sibel Kekili's performance brought a much softer energy that inspired the writers to add in more sympathetic moments not in the book, such as becoming protective of Sansa, and genuinely falling in love with Tyrion, who himself was softened from his morally grey book counterpart because of Peter Dinklage and that charisma.
I am yours, and you are mine.
And then, when it was time to adapt their book ending, rather than rolling with it and allowing the story to move in a direction concurrent with how their characters had evolved, they tried to force it in a way that did not work.
Am I invited to your wedding?
Suddenly, a woman who survived thanks to her street smarts and knows her safety is at risk as long as she's with Tyrion, is jealous of a marriage that he's literally forced into and won't consummate because women, am I right?
She's a beautiful girl. You said so yourself.
That doesn't mean...
Sibel Kekili herself disliked how the storyline ended, feeling it was out of character for Shae to testify against him, and the only defense she got from the higher-ups was that it happened that way in the books. But on the flip side,
I don't want you to marry her.
they had the previous seasons completely change the characterization surrounding Robb Stark's wife, who went from demure, impoverished Westerosi noblewoman Jane Westerling to outspoken Volantene noble turned field nurse Talisa Mygear, and in the book she didn't attend the famous Red Wedding and is still chilling in the Riverlands with a royal pardon, but the show had her there and killed her off, recognizing that she had turned into such a different character that a different resolution was necessary. So back to Cole.
Because you're still a demon.
One who's done unspeakable things.
His storyline in Season 3 is kind of like Baby's first redemption arc. using both the in love with the mark and enemies to lovers tropes, which get used so much because they are very compelling when done well. And they are done well here.
Prove it.
He's got the sympathetic backstory of being half human and in the game because he wants his father's soul. They're careful not to show him actively hunting down and killing innocents, and his plans involve trying to steal the Book of Shadows, or less brutal means of eliminating the sisters.
Even when I went back in time to destroy your line on All Hallows Eve.
That was you?
Now, don't get me wrong, Cole's actions as he worms his way into Phoebe's life are emotional manipulation 101. But even look at this moment in All Halliwell's Eve.
The name of your true love begins with a C.
Cole.
The thought that Phoebe might feel anything legitimate for him is troubling, and we get confirmation from a magical empath that he has fallen in love with her for real. And the entirety of the episode Power Outage is him struggling with these feelings he can't ignore, and the fact that if he fails, then it's Vanquish City. And when it comes down to it, he chooses Phoebe. Now, I'm not going to claim that this is a manual on how to have a healthy relationship, but his confession to her in sleuthing with the enemy is honest and free of manipulation, and he even saves her from Krell.
Do you believe me now?
And it's not like everything is automatically forgiven afterwards.
That is for ruining my favorite movie, and oh yeah, my life too.
He has to travel through time and properly prove that he's trying to be good before Phoebe gives him another chance.
You're staying.
He's not like Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time, who eternally switches sides in the hopes of having things both ways. And he and Phoebe even come up with the idea to make a power stripping potion so that he can be fully human. This doesn't happen until Season 4's Black as Coal, both because of the aforementioned misunderstanding that makes up the last few episodes of Season 3, and them needing additional firepower while training a new charmed one. So already we're seeing dissonance between how Brad Kern described him as the bad boy who couldn't let go of his dark side and how the show actually portrayed him.
You don't have to explain yourself to me.
Yes, I do.
He was happy to let go of his dark side. He never had a problem with not doing evil things.
For all intents and purposes, I've been a demon for over 100 years. That's all I've ever known.
His only problems when he had his powers stripped were having to adjust to life as a mortal after 116 years as a demon, and figuring out where he existed as his own person outside of the relationship.
Well, I won't last as one without a reason to get up in the morning.
You have me. I'm a reason.
That's all I have, Phoebe.
He had trouble adjusting to the mortal world, sure, but Rome wasn't built in a day. Cole wanted to be part of the action, yes, but only so he didn't feel useless, not out of being unable to resist evil.
I don't work with evil anymore.
You might reconsider.
A lot of people like to headcanon his decision to take in the Hollow and Charmed and Dangerous as knowing what might result, but that's contradicted by the very next episode.
You never told me I'd become the source if I helped vanquish him!
Cole didn't make this choice because he wanted power, or for any reasons beyond saving Phoebe and life in general.
It's your only chance to save your love.
He became the source because he was tricked. No other reason. Literally no other reason.
If I do this, what do you say then?
A future. For both sides.
And before I go into a rant, I'll first reference my least favourite continuity mistake in the whole series, which comes in the 150th episode that has Cole appearing as a spirit advisor.
The last Halliwell that trusted you ended up burying your demonic spawn.
Not one of my finer moments.
Not one of your finer moments?
The Hollow won't let you stop there.
And so be it!
There were two disempowered charmed ones, a dying Whitelighter, and a demon with both his and their powers happy to let reality go bye-bye. Taking in the Hollow and jumping in front of that fireball was literally your finest moment. And Piper, sweetie, you see those two children you're so desperate to get back to? And see the condition you were in during the aforementioned life-saving? Those kids wouldn't even exist if Cole hadn't saved you. This episode could have been the fix-it that Season 7 was doing so well with many other continuity mistakes, but it seems like the show itself was just not prepared to answer for the actions of the other two sisters. So here we go. Paige is my favourite charmed one, and when she's written well, I love her. But then you get this arc in Seasons 4 and 5 and, well, I'm not exactly feeling sorry for her in these moments.
Bitch!
Paige's storyline once Cole becomes the source is another baby's first trope. In this case, Cassandra truth, in which one character knows something and fails to get the others to listen, resulting in tragedy, ruin, yada yada yada. The problem with Paige in this situation is that she's wrong.
I don't hate Cole, Phoebe. I just don't trust him.
Her suspicions about Cole come from the wrong place. She sees him use demonic powers and all these things that don't add up. And the conclusion that she jumps to is that he just went, heel turn, lol. Sure, she has misgivings about him based on the fact that he previously killed as a demon, which, again, clashes with what the show has actually established about him.
Balthazar still exists inside of me. That hasn't changed, nor does it change what I've done.
He didn't ignore or downplay his past actions.
Doesn't balance out. Doesn't even come close.
He has full accountability for them. And Paige herself witnessed him willingly using himself as bait to save Piper in Hell Hath No Fury, where he would be tortured by the cries of all his past victims.
The pain of their cries alone can kill you.
Yes, but as you said, I'm not the demon who did those things anymore. And if facing my crimes helps save your sister.
Paige knows possession is a thing. And how does she know it? Because the Source did it to her and almost got her to murder an innocent. So out of all the possibilities she considers, she chooses that this otherwise good, selfless person who literally saved her life episodes ago randomly decided to switch to evil. Not that he's being possessed or manipulated. Which, you know, is what's actually happening.
If you weren't clinging to the law for your witch so vigorously, it would have overtaken you by now.
This feels like such a betrayal of character because Paige was established as someone who saw the good in others and wanted to help them be better. Considering in the episode in which Cole saved her life, she used magic to help a woman she knew was trying to be better.
I think I can still help you get your son back.
And yeah, it is consistent with her character to think she has to go cowboy cop and punish someone she decides is guilty, but remember when leaning into that side of herself was a warning bell for evil? And for all the sorry was supposed to feel for her for not being believed, her methods of trying to convince the others are just stupid.
I don't know why I feel that way, I don't.
They dismiss her because her logic of Cole just turned evil is flawed. Had she said, he's acting funny, maybe he's possessed, then maybe they might have listened sooner. And there's actually nothing wrong with Paige being in the wrong in this situation. She's new, naive, and bound to have some prejudices. But the show never acknowledges that she was wrong.
You evil son of a bitch.
She gets this moment and I'm just like, no?
No, your powers!
Remember this? You practically handed the Source another power while Cole warned you not to. And in Season 5, this continues, where Paige never draws a distinction between the Cole who is possessed by the Source and the one who previously demonstrated that he was good and selfless.
He might not be an innocent, I won't go so far as to call him that.
And then there's this moment.
He's trying so hard to be good, maybe...
Phoebe, we've been down this road before.
To which I say, Paige?
Go screw yourself!
And we won't even get into her using Leo for unwanted target practice, because we have another sister to hold accountable. Although I hold Season 5 up as Phoebe's big derailment across the series, the problem starts in the Season 4 finale, Which Way Now?
Okay, you know, you can't keep running from that thing forever.
I also want to avoid the strawmanning that is sure to happen and did happen the last time I held Phoebe to task on this behaviour. She was under no obligation to take Cole back or get together with him.
I do love you. And I always will.
It's not even a question of love, and more so there being too much trauma associated with the relationship and needing some distance from it. And Cole definitely needing a chance to work out who he was outside of being her man. That's a valid point.
It's over between us.
She is, however, 100% obligated to save an innocent and fix a mess she made.
Everyone has to move on, you know, sooner or later.
Cole is in the wasteland because they had to vanquish him to get the Source. They had to vanquish him because he didn't get the chance to swap his powers to the Wizard. The Wizard didn't get his powers because Phoebe intervened. Phoebe intervened thanks to manipulation by the Seer and influence from the Source's baby she was carrying. Her sisters and everyone else draws a distinction between what she was doing of her own free will and when she was being influenced by evil.
The baby made me do it.
So if Phoebe gets that free pass, then so should Cole.
Well, maybe you should have thought of that before you decided to become the source of all things evil.
It's made very obvious when he's briefly able to fight off possession, but not fully, one of which includes saving Paige because the idea of Phoebe losing another sister is unbearable.
This can't be happening. Not again.
And it's explicitly pointed out that when Cole is in the wasteland, he's condemned to no afterlife, and still, Phoebe refuses to do anything.
That's easy for you to say. You'll get to go to the good place, mayn't you?
So let's get this straight. Possession victim has to be killed to stop the thing that's violating his body. Victim is facing literal cessation of existence without help, and someone with the power to fix that quite easily won't do it.
I can't use dark magic again. I won't.
Phoebe is the good guy in this situation. Although I've said before that I think some of it was partly intentional. Every season 5 episode up until A Witch in Time has Phoebe being presented as somewhat improperly paranoid of Cole.
Okay. You want me to say it, don't you? I was wrong. Okay, I'm sorry.
There was a planned affair between him and Paige that got dropped because Julian McMahon and Rose McGowan didn't like the idea, but even so, according to Holly Marie Combs, the exact quote is, "It was the exit strategy for him. He left before his time." So the storyline was still going to end with Cole going full-on evil and having to be killed. And I've said before that it would have had potential, since the repeated rejection from his former family could feasibly have made him snap, but this just feels like two different stories sewn together.
You lost your right to ask me that kind of question a long time ago.
This actually reminds me of the Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode where she has to write the ending to a story that's playing out in front of her, and Zelda has this to say.
Honey, you can't just force the ending. It has to come from the character's history, motivated by their strengths and weaknesses.
The episode Centennial Charmed is just infuriating for me.
The only one getting anything out of this is you.
First of all, Cole blaming Paige for everything is just a contrivance there to prop her up as a character and make her look better by comparison.
Damn it, Paige. I would appreciate it if you didn't practice on me. I may be dead, but it still hurts.
Cole wanted to be forgiven and accepted. Note that even when he was Source-possessed, the idea of Phoebe having to lose another sister was something that overwrote the evil influence. Even after Paige had been onto him, he couldn't let her die. And even so, the alternate reality is even more contrived.
Not what you expected?
Cole was declared a traitor by the end of Season 3. Yeah, Phoebe made a deal to stay in the underworld, but the Source was already planning on killing her, making that kind of thing null and void. If Paige hadn't been found, Cole and Phoebe would have been on the run or dead. Phoebe would never live among demons, and Cole would never rejoin them.
I'll fight it. I'll kill it.
This whole thing is, to reference Game of Thrones again, shortchanging a character's core values to shoehorn in a planned ending that just didn't fit.
How old was she? 3.
Daenerys going from quite benevolent ruler for the setting that's horrified at the accidental death of one child to mindlessly slaughtering a whole city of innocents was too sudden a switch for the fans to accept organically. And it's the same with Cole.
Haven't I proven to you that I am not evil anymore?
Little traits like his entitlement to Phoebe and penchant for using demon solutions were present in his early episodes, but they were well and truly done away with through character development.
You know as well as I do, you're not meant to stop every premonition. Some are just meant to prepare you for what's to come.
All these things that he does from Sam I Am through to Centennial Charmed are just contrivances to make Phoebe and Paige look better by comparison, even though he was only in this situation because of both of them, and they still refused to accept responsibility.
You have no idea what I've given up for you.
What about what I've given up, Cole?
They even resort to this absurdly cheap attempt at building sympathy for Phoebe when what did she do a few episodes earlier?
How could you have done this?
Let us remind ourselves that he had not done anything at this point, and when she gives her extremely reluctant apology, he goes into fawn mode and basically says, "No, it's my fault. Look what I made you do."
It's not your fault. I lost your trust a long time ago. I can't expect to earn it back overnight.
So to this, I say, Phoebe,
Go screw yourself!
Charmed is a show I come down on the side of history, greatly favouring its existence, and standing up for it whenever it fails to get anything resembling respect. But we can hardly love the thing blindly without acknowledging its flaws and holding them to task when they're seriously wrong.
I'm taking your advice.
Don't. I've been known to give very bad advice.
I beg your pardon?
Charmed expected us to forgive its main characters for a lot of things in its 8 seasons. Phoebe especially were expected to forgive for using her powers for personal gain, arranging for a human to be killed by demons, and a multitude of other reasons that I ultimately did forgive her for when she made attempts to earn that redemption.
Look, I don't want to die, but I'm not going to sit around and wait for an innocent to die either.
And that's what Charmed was all about. It wasn't the show that showed how awful the world can be when the wrong people are in power, or killed beloved characters for no reason other than torturing viewers. It didn't shy away from the darkness and sadness of life, but it always had an idealistic lens.
He chose to walk through that door not because of who you are, honey, but because of who he was.
Protector of the innocent, just like us.
That people were capable of good, and that forgiveness and redemption were possible if the one looking for them wanted to take those steps. And that's what Cole's initial seasons helped reinforce.
What am I supposed to do now? Who am I?
Oh, you're still the good man that I fell in love with.
But his final days tell a story of someone who did all that work, atoned for his past, helped countless people, and literally saved reality itself, and just ended up being used, manipulated, and ultimately rejected by the people he laid down his life for. And that's dark as especially for this show.
It's the only way out for me. And you want it too, so.
Yeah, but on our terms, not yours.
And I wasn't going to do my whole how I would fix it routine here because that's a whole lot of legwork, and I'm not even sure if Cole and Phoebe should have stayed together, since I actually did think Coop was a good match for her by the end. I do, however, think that Cole's storyline was best ended with him surviving, and setting off to live his life, maybe even keeping those new powers he got, since that would make for a nice moral about how powers are only as good as the people who know the right way to use them. His victory wouldn't be getting Phoebe back, but appreciating what knowing her taught him, and understanding that his humanity itself was the real victory. At least that's coming from me, the optimist who believes that someone willing to change and be better can do so.
I made so many mistakes, but I got through them, and I changed, and so have you.
I feel that the show redeemed itself for a lot of the worst mistakes it made by the end, one of the reasons I actually like season 7 and 8, but this is of course the one loose end I just can't let go of.
Well, bygones and all.
I wish I had a more positive note to end on, so I'll just go with a clip from the last time that Cole was written exactly as he should be.
This way, no matter what happens, you'll always know that I love you.